Now, one of the things that I think is really helpful in terms of discerning, what is true and what isn't, is very pragmatic. I'm actually a very pragmatic person. I think of things in terms of what works. So when you jump off of a bridge and flap your arms, you might think that you're going to start flying, but reality shows you very quickly that you're not going to fly. You're just going to fall. And, so then you might experiment with, well, what will allow me to fly? And so that's where you get into, aerodynamics and airplanes and gliders. There's all sorts of ways to uh, harness physics, harness reality in a way that will produce flight. But reality will tell you when you failed. And so for this reason, I think it's really important to recognize that an important aspect of truth is love. There's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll get into that more in a later talk. But basically, everything works better when you come from love. When you come from hate and division, you start having conflicts, you go into war, you destroy nature, and it's ultimately deleterious to your own soul. It just doesn't feel good to come from a place of disconnect and hatred and vitriol. But if you come from a place of love, then communities work better, governments work better, projects work better, your own internal emotional state works better. Everything just kind of works better when you come from love. And so, for that reason, I would say that love is an intrinsic aspect of reality. Anything that you do that has love within it is going to work better than if you do the same thing from a place of lacking in love. So this is an important distinction. This is something that we'll explore more at a later time, but it is so key to my understanding of truth and reality that I just wanted to create a place for that here. Now there's another question in all of this that I think a lot of people kind of forget to ask or don't think to ask, which is, are truth and facts the same thing? If you align with verifiable facts in all instances, does that mean that you are aligned with truth in all instances? And, for a long time, I thought that had to be the case. So I was just very kind of obsessed with what are the facts? What are, what is it that we know about history and events? And if we just stick to that and speak only about that, then we'll be living in truth. But something about that just didn't quite feel right. I wasn't quite sure what it was. And so I did some thought experiments, and I thought, well, I really want to always tell the truth. But what if I'm in a situation where telling the truth would be harmful? And so we do a thought experiment. And in that thought experiment, there's this maniacal killer. And somehow I know that if I tell this homicidal maniac the factual truth about something, that will lead him to kill a baby. And if I were to lie to him, then that would sort of mollify him, assuage his anger in some way, and so then the baby lives. So is it truthful for me to say the factual reality, to give the facts, the accurate, truthful facts to this potential baby killer, knowing that could lead to the death of an innocent child? And it just seemed to me like, no, that would just be a personal problem. I would just be really precious in my own, truth telling for my own sake and my own good, and I would be disregarding the life of an innocent baby. And where's the love in that? Where's the compassion? Where's the understanding that there are things more important than my own desire to always be telling the truth? At that point, I started to recognize, okay, there is a larger truth than just the facts. Um, Another example might be, if you're in a circle of people and you're gossiping, and you get into kind of hurtful gossip where you might know something about somebody. Let's say you know that they, had an extramarital affair or something like that, and you weaponize that information. You talk to other people and tell them this factually true information about a mutual friend, and that hurts uh, that person. It's hurtful to them. It hurts because then other people will judge them. Now, this is separate from perhaps telling that person's spouse, because they might need to know that, and that's out of a place of love and compassion for the spouse, that they should have that information. And so, speaking the truth, speaking factual truth to the person who needs to hear it is one thing. But speaking factual truth to somebody who doesn't actually need to hear it, and you're only saying it out of either hurtfulness, vindictiveness, or just callous disregard for the privacy of the person that you're talking about, that's another way in which facts become divorced from truth, because there's no love in it. You've weaponized it. Whenever you weaponize facts in a way that isn't serving love in some ultimate way, then you're actually not in truth anymore. You are now in a sort of untruth factual zone, a loveless zone of facts that, because it's loveless, it cannot be true. Another example, and this will be the last one, is let's say somebody in the mafia got a magic ring, and this ring always told him the truth, no matter what question he asked. And so you can imagine somebody like that would use a tool like that to get information on his enemies and use it to blackmail people and to have power over politicians and to find the perfect way to kill somebody. I mean, there's all these really evil ways that somebody could use truthful, factual information. But all of that is horrible. I mean, that's the last person you'd want to have with one of these magic truth rings, because they would use it in all these very unloving, untruthful ways. They could even use it to lie. They would know what the truth is, and they could just, if that didn't serve them, they could weave some other story that would benefit them and their personal agenda and their ego. And it's really clear, I think, that facts coming through such a filter, coming through such a person, would be very deleterious and not in keeping with love. So that's why, here at Truth Inspirations, we're all about the truth and love and awakening out of the illusion into a greater understanding and connection to love. Because if we're going to explore truth, we're going to bump up into love. Because truth and love, in my experience and understanding, they're two sides of the same coin. Now, the choice is yours as to what you're going to do with your life, how much you're going to align with truth, how much you're going to align with your illusions and your stories, and whether that's consciously or unconsciously. That's a personal choice, and that's perfectly fine. Love loves everything. And so there's no judgment from me or from love for whatever it is that you choose to do, but there are consequences. There's always consequences to our choices. And so if you choose to live from illusion, then you're going to bear the consequences of that, both on yourself and on the people around you. If you use your mind, use your intelligence, or use your physical body and your athleticism. If you use the things that you are born with in a way that is divorced from love, and or is, aligned with illusion, which is basically the same thing as being divorced from love. Not exactly, but close enough. Then you're going to do a lot of harm to the people around you, and to yourself. Again, no judgment. We live in a world full of people playing out their illusions, and love loves all of it. So there's no judgment here, but there are consequences. And when you come from a place of illusion, the consequences tend to be painful and undesirable, and it always catches up to you. We can kind of try and stay ahead of the truth and stay ahead of consequences. But the more you do that, the more the consequences actually pile up somewhere out there in the universe. And then eventually they show up. And you see this all the time with politicians or people in power who use that power to continue to stay in power. And then eventually it catches up to them. The lies, the deceptions, the hurtful things that they do to people to stay in power, it eventually catches up to them. And the consequences are often quite dire. But that's up to you. Here at Truth Inspirations, the idea is that we are here to align with truth and to step out of illusion and back into an alignment with love and reality as it is. So at this point, I'm going to open up the floor to questions, and just let me know, what thoughts or reactions or any questions that you might have to what we've discussed so far. There we go. Anne, go for it.
Just wanted to say that was really illuminating. And I've heard ideas like that before, but never put so succinctly. So I appreciate that. I've always kind of been adverse to bare bones, absolute facts all the time in any situation. I always thought maybe I was just a, white liar, but I also feel like in a broader context, there is a way to just kind of enlarge the wonderful feeling that we can have with each other by looking at that greater sense of truth and love than just saying, "Oh, your hair looks horrible," or whatever that little truth might be. It's like, and really, it's when you put it some of the things you said, it kind of makes you feel like, what do we know about truth anyway? It might be true in one angle, but from another angle, it's entirely different. So I really appreciate the idea of aligning with love and greater good. So thank you. That was good.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the feedback. That's lovely. Weaver.
So when you were talking about facts versus love, I was thinking of artificial intelligence that can only do the facts.
Right. Right. Yeah. And they can only do what we program them to do.
Yeah.
And we can't program heart into a computer.
Yeah.
Yet, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you take something like that, and you have like these sci-fi movies like the Terminator, where the machines take over, and they're terrible. They're so mean. Well, because they have all this intelligence, they have all this power on a mind level, in as much as a computer has a mind, but it's untethered to anything approaching heart or love or compassion. And so then it just completely, runs amok. And we see that with a lot of our technology. It's very disconnected from nature, from human dignity, from compassion. And that's not all technology. A lot of it's really, very helpful. But a lot of times we just, create technology for the sake of creating it, or for the sake of what we can get out of it, without thinking about, how much does that align with a truthful, compassionate, loving place. And I think it's important to do that. And so next, Irina.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
I was thinking that sometimes just to be that truth, to be that love,
Mhm.
and sometimes even just to be is the honestest truth of our existence.
Right. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because uh, one thing that I think uh, quite often is, however truthful my words are here, it's still coming through my particular perspective, and there's no getting around that, and that perspective is limited. And so this is something that you know one of my teachers says, which is that the only uh, completely true teaching that is not, sort of limited by our limitations is silence. The only true teaching is silence. And that speaks to what you're saying, just to be. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to think anything. There's no words involved. Just be. That is, I would say, absolutely one of the most truthful things that you can do for yourself in terms of just aligning with truth. Just be. I love that. Thank you. Jason.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. It's really enjoying what you're saying.
Thank you.
A lot of what you're saying reminds me of something that you told me 2 years ago, approximately, in a session. And I don't know if you have any plans on, you may be doing a whole other thing on this. So if you are, let me know. But I really remember, like, probably the biggest thing that ever rocked my world that you told me. Well, I was having so much trouble with guides, and even asking Merlin sometimes about certain things. And I was, I knew what I was hearing. I didn't have any trouble getting input, but what they were saying was not accurate. And you told me, like, some guides will straight up lie to you because it's in your best interest. and and you even said Merlin would do that, and I was like, he'll what? you know, it really exploded my brain.
Right.
But you explained why. And I mean, if you have any more to touch on that, please do. I don't know if you already got a whole thing set up for that.
Actually, that's perfect. Actually, that I'd forgotten about that angle.
You absolutely must talk about that because it absolutely totally transformed my whole perspective of getting information
Mhm.
and channeling and so on.
Right.
And ever since then, I would say, whatever information I've received, whether I'm working with Merlin or another guide of any kind, you know, um, I know what I'm getting into if I ask for information, and I need to accept that. Okay, well, the answer they're giving me is the answer that I need to know, even if it may not be entirely on point in terms of the facts.
Right.
And it really has helped me, truly, in massive ways.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The the flip side of how factual information can be untrue is that non-factual information can actually be true. And obviously, if it's non-factual, it doesn't align with, say, events, historical or what have you, or the trajectory of where things are going. It might be completely, separate from that. So it's not true in the factual sense, but a well-crafted lie can lead a person from where they are to a more true place within themselves. So we might go back to that example of the the person in the mafia who has this ring that always tells him factual information, and he's just kind of getting high on his ego and getting whatever he wants because he can outsmart everybody and whatnot. And then one day it lies to him, and he winds up losing everything. And it would be devastating to him. He would be really, 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 really upset at this magic ring for having, built him up and given him all these things, and then one day just taking it all away. Whereas if he had never had the ring to begin with, he would have just kind of used his own, mind and intuition to get what he wanted out of the world, and wouldn't have relied on something so fully and then have to betray him. But in the loss of everything, then all of the projections and all the ways that he was staying in the illusion of his ego by building up his ego, building up his sense of who he was with all this power and all this money and all the women or whatever, like, oh, I'm so great. And then it all comes crashing down. And so then there's a huge contraction and it's extremely painful. But that pain can actually incentivize him to look for something deeper. Anytime, and this is typically what happens when we get an intuition or working with guides or something like that, and they give us factually incorrect information, it's because we'll trust them enough to do what they say, and then what they say will be painful and won't end up the way that our ego had constructed the question, but it takes us to where we need to be. It takes us. It creates an experience that that forces you to really confront things that you would have never confronted if not for that experience. I would say for me, where this shows up most is in relationship, where I've had sort of an intuition about somebody that I should connect with, and and my mind might even be screaming at me, "Are you kidding? What you know about this person? Are you insane?" And then it's like, well, yes, because I'm just going to go with my intuition and trust that it is going to do a better job for me than my mind. Then I go into the relationship, and then it does everything. It's sort of a targeted missile that hits those spots of codependence, and those spots of shadow that I haven't really been addressing and looking at and dealing with, and couldn't, because I couldn't even see it. When it's a blind spot, you can't even see that that's work that you need to do. It's impossible to do it. And so then by following intuition that may or may not give me factually correct information, but that I can trust is going to guide me to truth with a capital T, then that is going to, that has helped me, and that can help you or whoever else. That's a process that can help you to see things about yourself that you weren't aware of, and then to process through them so you can be free of it. And so it's about being free of things that you don't even know you're in bondage to. And that's why we need guides, because they can see those things. Guides, intuition, teachers and whatnot, they can see those things that we can't, and they'll use whatever it takes to get you there. That's why I stopped, asking my intuition for answers that will get me what I want. Because every time I do that, it's just like begging to be led down, a merry road, and then just have it all blow up in my face. So instead, I'm just like, just tell me where to go and I'll do it. And if it's painful, I'll go through it. And if it's not, I will be grateful. And I'll be grateful if it's painful anyway as well. So, so thank you for bringing that up. Do you feel like that covers what you were sort of driving at?
Yeah. Very much so. It's just such I guess there was such a mythology promoted by I don't know from where, maybe the Bible. God cannot lie. I don't know. And then
Which
our
is
egos.
true. God cannot lie, but he can tell you an untruth. He can tell you something that's factually wrong.
Yeah.
In order to be more truthful than what we can possibly imagine in our brains.
Truly. I saw a YouTube video of really quickly. I saw a YouTube video of Mother Mira being interviewed,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a circle of people around her asking questions, and this one woman asked her something about like, how should I protect myself from like attacks of black magic? And Mother Mira just said, "Oh, those things were a problem in the past, but they're not a problem anymore." And I sat there and I'm like, "You liar! You know, what are you talking about? You're from India. You should know better. What's going on? Making this up." And I'm just like, but I know she, she's this higher dimensional being incarnated as a person, etc. And I'm all, what is she up to? And I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. And I started thinking about what you said, and then I just got into a space and asked Merlin about it, and he just kind of turned a light bulb on in my head, and he said, well, she told her what she needed to know. That woman needed to know, you don't need to worry about that. You're fine. Because whatever is going on with that woman, and obviously probably her relationship with Mother Mira, that's never going to be an issue.
Yeah, and that's something you find a lot with these gurus and these teachers who are operating at a higher level. They will tell everybody a completely different story that are completely inconsistent with each other. It's like, compare notes, you'll realize she's lying somewhere. There's a lie in here somewhere, because these cannot all be true together. But it's because each person needs to hear a different message.
Yeah.
Needs to move in a different direction in their life. And so, whatever lies need to be told, or truths from whatever perspective need to be told in order to move them in a direction that will be better for them and help them to heal and to be more harmonious within themselves. They'll say it. They'll say whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Irina, it looked like you had something you wanted to say.
Yes, I just remember the song about truth and lie, that they meet and have dinner and go to sleep, and during the sleep, the lie steal all clothes of the truth and all her makeup, and in the morning, truth is naked and sees that the lie going on her horse to the people and telling that she is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And on and on and on. And basically the ending is that they are practically the same, truth and lie, especially if to undress both of them, strip out all attributes.
Right.
There is no truth and no lie. It's all one, and it all depends on the person, on the point of view, on the amount what your consciousness can accept and process.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
Part of me rebels a little bit against that, because I feel like there is sort of, even though we can't know what it is, there is sort of a reality that is there, and a lie isn't the same as the reality.
Is there reality?
Well,
are you truthfully sure that there is reality? What we
I'm not sure of anything because I don't know anything.
Reality.
But if you widen the whole thing, if you have two people looking at the same thing, and one person says this is X, and the other person says this is Y, then yeah, maybe you can say that the truth and the lie, it's just a matter of perspective. But if you have 1,000 people looking at it and they say it's X, and you have one person looking at it and saying that it's Y, it might be that the person who is Y is just smarter or better.
Maybe wrong, maybe genius. Who knows?
It might be, there could be any sort of explanation, but it's what I want to get away from is the idea that we can just think whatever we want about reality, and that's the truth. Because I can think that you're my mother and that I came out of your womb, but that's not the truth. And you and I both know that. So there does come a point at which what we think is true
do you want me to argue if considering Divine Mother and you as
That's just taking it
human
into
pain,
That's-
it's like in the biggest picture, you are my son.
No. I said that I came out of your physical womb.
Physical, no, but
Right. So that,
probably yes.
that is something that one can think is true and just plain isn't. So the truth and the lie are not necessarily just different clothes on the same thing. And it's important to really recognize that there is a substrate of reality that we are beholden to. And we can't just make up whatever we want about it and have that become the reality. If that were the case, I would be a millionaire. I would just go into the store and buy a lottery ticket and decide that that's going to, that I've won the lotto. And then, I go to the lotto office and give them the ticket and say I won, and they'll look at it and say, no, you didn't. Because I made it up. You can't just make up a lie and say that it's true and have it be true on any sort of larger level. It can be true in your own head, and you can live an experience of being a millionaire with this ticket in your hand that's the winning lotto ticket. But as soon as you expand that out to what numbers actually came up on the lotto, it doesn't match. And so one is the reality and one isn't. And clearly, whatever numbers came up in the lotto office is the real number. And what I've invented in my head is not the real number. And we have to be humble about that. There is a truth that we might not be able to just force into reality because we want it to be true.
I would say there is strong constraint of physical reality, what seems like only true for us until the certain point.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. Well, thank you for bringing that question to the forefront, because whatever you take away from what I've said and what you've said, I think that's an important discussion to have. So thank you for bringing that.
Thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really worth exploration, our relationship with truth. And it's great pleasure to be with you twice a week.
You too.
Yep.
So,
thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you all for coming. I don't see any hands up on the participant list. If anybody has any last minute questions or comments, now's the time to jump in. And if not, then we'll close the meeting for today. Thank you all again so very, very much for coming. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Nathan.
You're welcome.